So welcome to this ROV Insight. Today, Stephen and I are going to be talking about 3 effortless ways to increase your energy, with the emphasis on effortless. So we're not going to talk about how you can exercise or do something to give you more energy, because if you're tired and you're depleted, you want something that's going to give you energy without you having to make a lot of effort because you don't have the energy for it. And this was brought to our minds from an interview Stephen and I did this week with Lisa Berry on what did she call it? Iridescent or
Yeah,
energetic
date with,
nutrition.
yeah, date with
And
diet.
then and so we got talking about food and so on. And then last night my wife and I were watching a basketball game, and at halftime the commentators came on, and they're going around and just commenting on the action, but every single one of them, and they have a lot of makeup on, but every single one of them just looked so tired, like this last year has just worn them out. And
Well,
then
Kevin,
yeah,
just what I was saying. That if I'm recently, if I talk about divine love or clarity or awake awareness, people are going, "Oh, yeah, okay," but it's kind of like outside where I'm at the moment. But at the moment I start to talk about stress and fatigue and depletion, they go, "Look, whatever you're doing regarding that, I want some of it. I want to jump in and get some of that. How do
right.
I solve the stress? What's so I'm really aware of that, and I'm very aware that there are these effortless ways to boost our energy. So I know we're going to talk first of all about live food and about living food, and that was one of the one of the areas when I first came to Japan that my wife pointed out to me was what's called an obachan, or an older woman. So she was in her 80s, and she had this lovely lush hair and radiant skin. She looked, very, very relaxed. And she was describing her how she and her husband had made this shift to live, unrefined, unprocessed, organic foods, eating locally, and that had just made just those simple cues to the where to find your food, almost like foraging, in old times. Like, instead of buying just the things straight off the shelves in the supermarket, take the time to look at what's available locally. And I've discussed before with you, Kevin, and about the fact that we're very fortunate here in Japan because we live in the middle of the countryside, and there are a lot of market gardens. So we source a lot of our produce directly from the growers. And so in the great earthquake here of 2011, that really kind of turned people's minds to, okay, where can we get the food? What is available? Is it going to be radioactive? Because that was the issue that people brought up, because there was a radiation cloud at that time. So there was a real, having to button down and look. We could only look locally because everything had sort of stopped. A lot of the deliveries, the shops there was nothing in the shops. So we actually had to get what we could from local knowledge. But that in itself was a really big aha. You sort of woke up to the fact that, oh, look, just down the road here, there's a farmer that's selling local produce, and we source that. And then my wife's aunt has her own rice farm, and my wife's mum, my wife's husband, has a whole organic market garden. So we were slowly able to put together produce that would leave us self-sufficient in those kind of real dire emergency days. And of course, over time, then we've kept those relationships. And I think it's something you and I have spoken about a lot, how important our relationship with the environment, same with our relationship with our meditation practice. It's all about our relationship with the environment, with animals, with food, with the forests. That's really at the heart of this. So once you build those relationships, then you realize how incredibly interdependent we are, and how powerful that can be in terms of life, because we start to realize how crucial the fresh food, food that's lit by the sunlight, that's actually got the opportunity to grow in the sunlight and take advantage of that electromagnetic magnetic energy that we're also absorbing from the food. And if we're it in turn is nourishing these electrical batteries that are actually fueling our health. So that, to me was really important. So refined food and packaged food has very little in the way of life force and nutrients, and especially life force. When you consider the difference between getting a packaged food that's been processed and refined and then getting a vegetable that's literally been growing in front of you and is absorbing the sun and absorbing the good water and nutrients from the soil and from the environment, there's no comparison.
Yeah, so just to make that effortless, um, just consider and look around you in your immediate surroundings to what is available in terms of fresh, live, local, organic food. Have food that's as close to having just been in the sun, as you said, and just been in the fresh air and just been in the earth. And which leads to our second effortless way, and that is to be in contact with the sun, with the fresh air, and with the earth. We've talked a lot in the past about the idea of getting our bare feet on the ground and also being out. You talked about being out in the forest, and in Japan, there's this forest bathing phenomenon. And this idea with COVID of getting out in the sun and taking hikes and getting out in the fresh air, and as a way of boosting our immune system, but also it boosts our vital energy. When we're in the sunshine, we do absorb sun like a plant does. And we do, when we're in fresh air, that fresh air is energized in a way that air that went through an air conditioning or heating system is not. And when we put our bare feet on the earth, we actually do absorb charge from the surface of the earth. The surface of the earth is a charged surface, and we absorb electrons from the earth. And all of that is being in touch with those elements are a powerful way to effortlessly charge our system.
Yeah, Kevin, I totally agree that forest bathing. So it was one of the first words I learned when I came to Japan. The Japanese word is Shinrin-yoku, and it means to bathe in a forest. And if any of you, watching this have ever seen some of the Japanese Studio Ghibli films like Totoro or Princess Mononoke or Spirited Away, they've all, you'll know that the Japanese view the forests as enchanting and rich and peaceful and full of magic and wonder. And I think that's exactly what that meaning is, that when you go into the forest and you go out into nature, you're in this really pristine environment where it's as if you can hear, communicate, feel one with this incredibly rejuvenating power of the forest. And it does, Shinrin-yoku literally translates as a forest bath. And I remember the very first time that I was introduced to this by my wife's mother. I remember the exact moment we were in this forest, and we were walking down these wooden pathways, and there was these beautiful still pools all around the forest. And it was way out in the, yonder, somewhere in Japan we were, because I'd traveled a fair bit. And I said to her that pretty much that same, feeling that, oh, I said, here we are, we're miles out of the way. And I said, we're next to this, pristine stream. It's undisturbed. It's just what you were talking about, Kevin. It's effortless. There's this. She said, Shinrin-yoku. I said, oh, what? Sounded like this, an incantation. Shinrin-yoku, she said. And of course, we didn't speak that much Japanese, and so my wife was translating, saying, "Yeah, she means forest bathing. You're actually having direct experience of what it means to bathe in the forest slide." Or bathe in the forest vibration, and all our groups are all about raising your vibration. And when we think about the amount of time we spend in city environments, and it's just, there's just such a different kind of feeling in the forest. And they did this research, Kevin, in Japan, where they looked across, they measured, pulse, blood pressure, parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system activity, and they discovered that people that were spending time in these forest environments, they took these 24 major forests, were showing reduced concentrations of cortisol, lower pulse rate, lower blood pressure, increased parasympathetic nervous activity, and lower sympathetic nervous activity. So it was kind of really interesting research. And I always remember all of that came to that one single moment with my with my mother-in-law that really showed how powerful, the outcomes of this Shinrin Yoku, or being naturally in the elements, really was. And of course that takes us on to our third effortless one, which is about gratitude and introspection.
Yeah. So what your story about being in the forest reminded me of walking in the redwood forest north of San Francisco, and they had those wooden bridges along a stream and these just incredible old trees. And my wife Monica and I sat down on a bench way deep in the forest and just closed our eyes, and there was a natural appreciation and gratitude that just arose from being in this absolute stillness and quiet and this presence of the forest. And if I close my eyes now, I can remember that, and I can feel right now the gratitude for that experience and bring it back into my body and really appreciate it and be inspired by it. And so that ability we have to go inside and to focus on something that we're grateful for, or focus on something that inspires us, that immediately brings up our energy level. And just by simply redirecting our focus, redirecting our attention onto really anything that we're grateful for, anything that inspires us, anything that fills us with a sense of wonder and awe, and just joy in the presence of life within us. That is an effortless way to boost our energy no matter where we are.
Kevin, I totally agree. I years ago, when I was talking to people about gratitude, and it was actually I was doing an abundance course with them, and of course it was all focused around finance. It was helping people that generate small business, and they were talking about abundance. Of course, everybody sees abundance in terms of a monetary currency, but I said to them, "Have you ever thought about the giving and receiving of gratitude as a currency as well? Like, there is actually a flow. There's a flow of energy. You naturally feel good. There's a currency that generates abundance. It's a different type of currency, but it's still, a flow in that sense. And the kind of gratitude that that you were talking about, that you experienced with Monica, time and time again, research studies have shown that anytime somebody experiences gratitude, that it also correlates with people being happier and being less depressed. And if you look at, one thing I'm particularly aware of at the moment is the number of people that are coming to me in the practice that I run, for healing and guidance, who really feeling pretty depressed by the current circumstances. The whole pandemic's gone on a long time, and there's sometimes a feeling like of heaviness, and it's weighs on people, can get people down physically and mentally. So this one, simple power of gratitude actually helps people to let go of that depression. I mean, depression itself, the word is like a heaviness, and the opening of gratitude, the opening of the heart to what's present, to the simple things. I think it was Berkeley University had done a lot of study on, the power of gratitude and how this changes your brain, improves your mental health, but literally does change the way that the brain actually views our circumstances and situations. So I think, you know, in terms of effortlessness, I mean, the things that we've mentioned, access to live foods, and that's mostly just, as you said, curious, but having an attitude of curiosity about what's around us and close at hand that we can access effortlessly. And then the elements, that effortless openness to the elements of sunshine and fresh air and fresh water. I mean, just those really basic things that allow us to access. I mean, when you think about spring water and drinking water that instead of chemically laden water, that's another really simple, effortless thing that people can do. And then lastly, you know, gratitude. Just the very first thing in the morning, getting up and expressing gratitude for three things that are present in your day: your family, or your friends, or the fact that you're alive, or that you can put your feet on the ground, or that you can lie in your bed, or that you can breathe. All those. And I do think, you know, the simple effortless things like, you know, water, or even like breathing, just that we sometimes forget completely, these simple effortless things like the breath, that one of our primary sources of energy is the breath itself. And when you start to notice the breath, just as you were talking about, you can have breaths of gratitude, that just you combine the awareness of the breath with this simple sense of gratitude first thing in the morning, and that can change your day and change your experience.
Absolutely. A wonderful point about the breath is just how often do you just close your eyes and feel the breath and just be grateful for the life force in the breath? And that in itself can just revolutionize every moment that we do that and immediately raise our energy. So I hope that all of you have taken some inspiration from some of these suggestions, and just have in your mind effortless, easy ways that you can boost your energy and let go of stress and fatigue. It's just a breath away. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you all for watching.